If only I would have known this, it would have made a huge difference. What is up, guys? Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the video. Let's talk about fat loss plateaus, sort of why they happen and what we can do about it. So you might be on track, you might be pushing really hard, you might be seeing progress, but then for some reason, right, the scale stops moving, you stop seeing progress, it feels like things sort of come to a halt. So let's dive in. So fat loss in general, right, it's all about, to sum it up very simply, it's all about eating less and moving more. Now, of course, there's a lot more to that, but the sort of general idea of fat loss is eating less and moving more. But this does only work to a certain point to where more is not always better. And I myself have firsthand experience with this. When I was in college, I experienced quite a fat loss plateau. For months and months and months, I stayed pretty much in the same weight range, even though my overall goal was to try to lose a little bit of body fat, but I really just wasn't. So when I look back at what I was doing back then versus what I do now and the things that I've done to actually successfully lose weight, I can see that there's a massive difference. To paint a picture of what I was sort of up to when I was in college during all of this, what I was essentially doing was I was lifting every morning about 5, maybe 6 days a week. I was walking around campus all day, right? It's college. So I was walking around all day from class to class and to my dorm and back. And so I was easily getting anywhere between 10 to maybe 15,000 steps per day. On top of that, I would also do another 30 to 45 minutes of like low intensity cardio, another 5, maybe 6 days a week. Plus, and then here's the biggest thing, I was only eating anywhere from like 1,500 to maybe 1,800 calories. Now that was typically during the week, right? Monday through Friday. Now when the weekend came, it was a different story. Of course, it's college, so right, there's a lot of drinking, partying, you're not really caring about your diet or calories. So I definitely dealt with that. My weekends were full of a ton of drinking, a lot of pizza, a lot of just calorie blowouts. So that's essentially the gist of what was going on with me in college during my fat loss plateau. And again, my weight was kind of fluctuating in the same range for months and months and months. Now, some of the obvious red flags with what I was doing at college are this. Number one, too much activity. Again, more and more and more does not always equal better. So right off the bat, it's easy to see that I was getting, way too many steps. I was doing too much extra cardio on top of lifting, all while not eating enough, which is the second red flag to this, is that I was super under eating. So way too much activity and not enough food, coupled with those sort of weekend blowouts. So all in all, I was really doing this sort of like really restrictive for several days and then have like kind of a blowout on the weekend and this sort of like yo-yo dieting style. So too much activity, not enough food, too restrictive, and this very inconsistent yo-yo dieting. What this does, which I didn't know at the time, is slows down your metabolism. When you're doing way too much and not eating enough, your body is going to respond by essentially wanting to hold on to whatever energy it can. So it'll do that by slowing down your metabolism. So then even if you're doing like a ton of exercise and you feel like you're pushing a lot, you're really only burning a small amount of energy. And then by not eating enough, you're not giving your body the proper fuel it needs to actually feel good and be energized. It's sort of just like in this red zone. So when this happens, any body fat that you do have, your body's most likely going to hold on to it for dear life. Because your body's kind of thinking like, we have way too much energy going out, not enough coming in. We have a little bit of this backup storage, which is body fat. So we're going to try to hold on to that as much as we can. So that is essentially the gist of why me, myself, when I was in college and other people experiencing these fat loss plateaus, that's one of the big reasons of why this happens. Too much activity and then too much restriction. Also, the whole inconsistent yo-yo dieting, you lose weight, gain it back, lose it, gain it back. You sort of just end up spinning your wheels. So how would I fix that and what do I do now? Well, first and foremost, I have a much better idea in my head of how much I actually need to be eating. Which, if you're unsure, there's tons and tons of free calorie calculators online. You just find one, type in your information. It's not going to be perfectly exact, but it will give you a decent estimation of where you should be with your calories. If only I would have done that, that would have been much easier. But instead, I just, for some reason in my head, thought, 1,500, 16, 1,700, that sounds like a good number, so I'll just eat that. When in reality, I probably could have been eating 24, 25, maybe 2,600 calories. The next thing I would change about that and sort of what I do now is I'm doing much less activity. So when it comes to weight loss, if you're someone who's already getting in a lot of steps every day, you don't need to do any added cardio. Now you can absolutely do cardio for, if you want to improve your cardiovascular health and your fitness, of course. But when it just comes to weight loss, you definitely don't need to be adding that much. I was doing way too much. And so a way that I'll kind of balance it out now is most days if I'm getting a lot of steps, I won't really worry about cardio too much. And then if there's days where I'm not getting enough steps, I'll try to usually get some type of cardio session in, maybe like a zone 2 session, 20, 30 minutes after I lift, something simple like that. And then also when it comes to lifting, nowadays I'm lifting anywhere between 3 to 4 days a week versus 5 to 7 days a week. So now what I'm doing is I'm actually eating a reasonable amount of food and I'm getting a reasonable amount of activity. Not too much activity, and I'm not being too restrictive. And another tip to help avoid the whole yo-yo dieting is again with restriction. So when it comes to like food you enjoy and your favorite foods, don't think about never being able to have them. Because when we tell ourselves that we can't have a certain food or a certain food's off limits, all that's going to do is make us want to eat it even more. And all this restriction usually just ends up in binging, going off the diet, and this yo-yo pattern. So instead, just know that it's okay to enjoy your foods. Allowing yourself to have some of your favorite foods a little bit here and there, like throughout the week, that'll make it to where you won't feel like you have to binge so much. You won't feel so restricted. So I hope that was helpful in breaking a fat loss plateau. A lot of the times we're simply just doing way too much activity and we're not eating enough. We're being too restrictive. And this is going to slow our metabolism down. It's going to make our body want to hold on to whatever body fat that we have. And we're not going to see good progress. I was able to break this cycle and I know you can too. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope that was helpful. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. You can follow me on social media, Lane Nelson Fitness. And then you can also check out my website, lanenelsonfitness.com. If you're interested in online coaching, you can sign up for coaching. Check out my blog I have. Then I also have an email list you can sign up. So with that being said, I will see you guys in the next video.